Today you'll be creating the sunset backdrop for your Fauvist tree we'll be drawing next time. You need your watercolor pencils, you need a piece of watercolor paper. That's the really heavy textured paper. Yours is Calvert Middle School. And you need a mat underneath and some water and a paintbrush. And we'll start first with our pencil, just mapping out lightly. And we're going to start here. I'm about if I divide this into thirds, I'm below that. So I'm going to watch where I put my ground. And I'm just going to do like a rolling hill. And then in the background on this side, I'm going to do one sort of mountain looking thing here. And then on this side, I'm going to do two smaller ones. And then that's it for now. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom. I'm going to start with my dark green. So the dark green is going to go at the top of this line. And I'm going to fade as I come down. So dark green. And I'm trying to be nice and even. And right now I'm hitting a nice big spot on my watercolor pencil, which is great. And I'm going to go down probably about halfway, somewhere like here. And with my mat in the back, I don't worry about going right off that edge. I'm filling nice and even. And then I'm going to come in with my light green, and I'm going to do that all the way to the bottom. And where they overlap, I will let it mix in and overlap a little bit, okay? I want to make sure that I'm like covering everything, because that light green becomes really light once we add the water to it. So we want to make sure that we've got good coverage. All right, the next section we're going to be using violet. And we're going to come into this, and we're going to first trace over this line, okay? And then I want to do this. So I'm going to do heavy line here. So this first one means it's overlapping the back one, and I'm going to do a heavy line here. So it's overlapping the background. So I'm going to go dark, dark, dark on this outer edge, and then I'm going to lighten the pressure but fill evenly down to the green. So dark, dark, dark at the top, and then I'm going to lighten and fill evenly down to the green. Okay, now we're going to start on the sunrise or sunset. And we're going to start first with yellow. Okay, so down here, yellow. And what we're going to do is this. So I'm going to go nice and heavy in here. I actually want to cover right up to that pencil line. Okay, so yellow. Now, yellow and violets are complementary colors, which means they're opposite on the color wheel. So when we go to do this, we're going to make sure that we don't put wet next to wet when we paint this. Okay, so I'm going to lighten the pressure with the yellow. And then I'm going to go to orange. And with the orange, I'm going to let it overlap, but I'm going to do some of this, where I'm going to allow some streaky, like sort of horizontal lines to come into the yellow a little bit. So they're overlapping. So here's their overlap. And then I'm going to allow it to sort of, a little bit of horizontal streakiness as it goes down in there. Okay, now orange This is going to turn into pink, so I'm going to overlap the two in here. So they're overlapping. I'm doing some of the same like little streaky horizontal lines. And I'm making sure that I fill, not leaving any areas empty. And I'm going to work my way up. The pink, I got to get away from that orange. So I have a band of pink. That's no oranges mixed into it. It's probably about 1 inch wide here. And then I'm going to go into blue, light blue. And with light blue, again, I'm always going in these horizontal, going across strokes. And I'm going to pull just a few little dabs, like little spots down into the pink a little bit. And I'm going to let this roll to the top. We're almost to the top. I'm going to get probably right in here. I'm going to switch to my darker blue. I'm going to let it be decently dark at the top because this could be sun setting. Actually, probably either. And I'm going to let it reach down a little bit into horizontal strokes into the bottom. Make sure I fill pretty evenly and smoothly because I don't want to see pencil strokes once I blend this out. Alright, now we're going to do this. I'm going to put a little more blue right out to this edge. We're going to start first with the grass. So I'm going to pull on this line here the darkest green back at this back edge, and then I'm going to go with lots of water in my brush. So I've got my brush sort of flooded with water, and if you have a bigger brush at this point, that would be what I would be using. This is the only brush I've got right now. Alright. And then I'm going to pull down into the light green, so the dark green is going to fade to this bright light green, and I'm going to let some of the dark pull down there. It's fine. I don't want to pull down so much dark green that I lose my light green, but something like that. Okay, now we're going to leave the violet alone for now, and we're going to go into the yellow. Okay, so I'm wetting the yellow, and then I'm going to start working my way up. Now, when I'm working my way up, I'm going to try and stay in these like horizontal, kind of like how I put the colors on. I'm going to stay in these horizontal sort of brush strokes. So horizontal means I'm going across, and I'm going to just keep wetting my brush as this pulls up into the pink. I'm going to make sure I go all the way out. And the pink will start mixing with the blue, which might give me like a light violet color when they mix together. Yep. And then I will just work my way to the top. Now, once I get to this top, I'm going to have to give it a rest because the yellow is still very wet, and I don't want to go right in and paint wet next to wet, because yellow and violet are complementary colors, and if there's any bit of over painting, it will show. Alright, so now I've got rid of all the pencil strokes right out to the edge, no white showing, and now I'm going to take a rest. And what I'm going to do now is I'll go in and do the quiz, the Piet Mondrian quiz that's in Schoology, and we're going to give it a rest. Okay, so when you're done with your quiz, you'll come back and you will do the violet. The yellow should be dry, so we're not worried about it bleeding into there. And we will first do the top edge. We want to make sure that we're going right to the yellow. But if you haven't waited long enough and it's wet, you're going to get bleeds. I'm going to pull this down. So I'm going to work from that dark side till I hit. And it's probably, we don't want to do too much overpainting in the green either, because green has yellow, but it's not as critical on the bottom. So if you hit a little bit, we want to make sure we touch. We don't have any white band left, but this top edge is the most important, that there's no bleeding here. Okay, so when you're sure that you've gotten rid of all the white, and you painted right down to the green and there's no pencil strokes, you will submit your work.